Oh, welcome back.
Last train. Last train.
Welcome back to the big broadcast.
Come on, everybody, won't you party with me?
We are getting on the last train to Awesome Town. And it is going to be a heck of a deal today here on the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast. Before we get everything going here, Twitter, Facebook, all that you can do through our app, jiggy.jaguar. That's our Skype. jiggyjaguar.us is where you get the app. Also, iHeartRadio, AMFM247.com, TuneIn, iTunes, Radio Loyalty, and 50-plus AM/FM stations across the fruited plain, as Rush Limbaugh would say. But I have a ton of material now that I've been sitting on for the last, good Lord, probably year, 2 years, something like that. I have kept my mouth shut about a lot of things. I don't have to anymore. I don't have to anymore. I was working, as you know, with XWE in Salina, Kansas, home of the shenanigans. And I was working with Total Action Zone Wrestling out there in Hoisington, Kansas. And I was doing some stuff with all these different wrestling organizations, or doing all these things. And then I was, you know, as everybody knows, I'm buddies with the Midwest Mangler, Mr. Lance Chafin, the big star. And was kind of doing some stuff for MWE, but not really, because dude wouldn't let me get involved, which is fine. It's fine. Run his wrestling company the way he wants to run it. But Saturday, the 8th of September, I was officially released, relieved of my duties from XWE in Salina, Kansas, and consequently the KWA, the Kansas Wrestling Association, or Kansas Wrestling Alliance, or whatever it is. I have no dog in the fight anymore. None. So guess what? The handcuffs are off. The leash is off. The, what is it? The restraints are off. I don't know. I'm just so excited because we are going to spend the next several weeks. I have a series of things that I want to talk about on this show that I haven't been able to talk about. I'll give you a little bit of a list here. We're going to talk about Lance Chafin, the Midwest Mangler, Mr. MWE. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about XWE in Salina, Kansas. We're going to talk about the KWR, brand new wrestling organization coming soon. We're going to talk about Taz. We're going to talk about PCW. We're going to talk about the KWA. We're going to talk about PCW. I think I said that already. I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited. We're going to talk about Burgess. We're going to talk about Lance. We're going to talk about Billy. We're going to talk about Duncan. We're going to talk about Zombie. Oh, I got a lot of stuff to say about Zombie. We got a lot of stuff to say about Kenny Zombie Jones. We're going to talk about Mitch. We're going to talk about Mike. We're going to talk about Pena. We're going to talk about Dan. We're going to talk about everybody. And a lot of this stuff, you might be sitting here going, oh my God, he's going to talk about that guy or that chick. A lot of it's just going to be me putting them over and talking about how great they are. A lot of it is going to be me not only burying them underneath a building, but literally underneath the dirt of that building. I'm going to bury them so far that Satan is going to be tickling tickling them and saying, "Woo! What did Jiggy do? What did Jigman Freud do?" Woo! I do like the tickle motion. I do like the Satan tickle motion. That's a new one. Well, there's going to be a lot of people getting tickled by Satan on this show. So strap yourself in, strap the bootstraps, take a deep seat, white knuckle ride, all that stuff. There's some other wrestlers I'm going to be talking about on this show from the state of Kansas. We got all sorts of stuff we're going to be talking about. But I do want to touch on something that is fairly new news that I haven't talked about, and that concerns Lance Chafin, the Midwest Mangler, and Tommy Snow. Fairly recently, if you're a pro wrestling fan, or Mark, or whatever you want to refer to it as, Tommy Snow and Lance got into a little bit of a verbal altercation, I guess, on the old Facebook. Well, okay, here's the deal. Apparently, which I've seen some of the screenshots. I love phones nowadays. You could take screenshots. You could be talking to someone, and you could be telling them something, and then they send it to somebody else, and then that person gets that thing, and all of a sudden it's a game of telephone. Tell a friend, tell a wrestler, like Bruce Pritchard says on Something to Wrestle With. Telephone, tell a friend, tell a wrestler. I think that's how it is. Well, now it's tell one guy, tell another guy, tell that guy, and then everybody in Kansas wrestling knows. And there are going to be some of these stories, like this story with the two wrestling promotions in Salina. You got to have a team of lawyers to figure out who's screwing who. It's the weirdest thing. And I don't have a dog in any of these fights because I'm not working for XWE anymore. I've never worked for PCW. And I'll tell you, after a lot of these videos, I will not ever work for PCW. Because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say, everybody's going to take wrong, and there's going to be all sorts of unneeded drama. And then a lot of people are going to take what I'm going to say, and they're not going to understand it. And so it's just going to be like a caveman. Brr, I don't like Jiggy. He said something wrong. Brr, I don't like Jiggy. So let's start with Lance Storm. Lance Storm. Oh my God. Lance Chafin wishes he was Lance Storm. Actually, Lance Chafin has more personality than Lance Storm did back in the day. I don't know what Lance Storm's doing now. I think he's training people or something. But, okay, a couple months ago when Lance was duking it out with Dan out of Hoisington over the Taz thing, when they were going back and forth between who had the name, who didn't have the name. Somebody was Taz, somebody was the real Taz. Oh, by the way, that story, I'm going to get into that at some point, and I'm going to tell you all sorts of things going to make your head spin. And if you're an indie wrestling fan, which, by the way, I don't know why you would be watching these videos or listening to these podcasts if you were not an indie wrestling fan. But I'm going to tell you all sorts of stuff going to make your head spin. So, so these guys, apparently, Tommy Snow, he has been wrestling for Bad Boys Professional Wrestling, Total Action Zone Wrestling, all the different incarnations of the wrestling out there in Hoisington, Kansas, that is promoted by Dan Adams. He wrestled when they did I remember watching Tommy in the old Wellington days. All the stuff. I remember going out to Hoisington in like the early 2000s and watching him team up with Al Snow, and it was Tommy Snow and Al Snow, and they wrestled. I think it was Rick Steiner and Danimal. It was a heck of a deal. And that footage is somewhere on a DVD with Corbin Rydell somewhere in Seattle. I don't know. So Tommy, of course, was taking Dan's side, which you would expect he would, over the feud with Lance and the name and stuff. And so apparently at one point, there was a screenshot that was sent to Lance. Of course, there was a screenshot sent to Lance from somebody in one of these wrestling groups, these little Facebook wrestling groups that people are in. And right around this time, when all this stuff started happening between Dan and Lance, I removed myself from all these wrestling groups because I'm like, I am not having anybody and their brother accuse me of running information back to one another. I'm not doing that. Because I like Dan. I've always liked Dan. I've always gotten along with Dan. I like Lance. I know a lot of people can't stand him, but I kind of feel sorry for Lance. Plus, I've known Lance forever. I've known Lance as soon as he started doing all this wrestling stuff in Kansas. I was single-handedly, and I know no one's ever going to give me any credit, but I was single-handedly halfway responsible for doing the Brian Knobs thing in Salina. I hooked him up with the venue. I hooked him up with some of the people on the show. I gave him some ideas on how to promote the show. So, but that's fine. Doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about here. I've wasted too much time here. Preamble. But apparently at one point, a screenshot was put out there between something that Tommy Snow, Kenny Zombie Jones, and a few other people went back and forth on how much of a piece of crap Lance was for doing all this stuff. So that got back to Lance through one of these people in one of these wrestling groups. So Lance gets a screenshot, and he's angry, and he's wanting to fight Tommy Snow and all this stuff. And then nothing ever comes of it. Nobody ever does anything. Well, several months later, maybe a year later after this, Tommy Snow tells everybody about he's got MS. I think that's what he's got. He's got a condition. And I love Tommy to death. He's a real good guy. I know that much like everybody else, I've seen the screenshots of him talking shit on me in the past to other people. And that's fine. But I like Tommy. He's a good guy. I've never had an issue with Tommy. So Tommy Snow and Lance went back and forth. Well, apparently one night, ironically, when he was on the telephone with me, which that's how rumors get started. Lance is drunk, texting people and calling people and wanting to put me on the phone with people, and he's angry. He's angry. The whole thing with him and Brooke, or him and not Brooke, or him and who knows? That's a whole nother kettle of fish I don't even want to get into. I don't even know the real story on that. I'd like to know the real story, so I can tell you people about it. So he does all this stuff with Tommy Snow. Well, apparently he decided that he was going to send Tommy Snow a message. And he's talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to send him a message." Well, then I hear him, tip-tapping on the phone or on the keyboard or whatever. And he's like, "Well, I sent him something." And I said, "Okay." And he's like, "Well, it's because he was talking shit on me a couple months ago." I said, "Okay." I said, "He probably has forgotten he even said anything." Because believe me, if I had some sort of life-changing moment like happened to Tommy Snow, I wouldn't be able to tell you what I had for breakfast 3 weeks ago. So I would be more focused on that than I would be on some stupid internet feud somewhere. So they get back and forth, and they have this thing. Well, eventually, Tommy decides the next day, well, he's just going to post it. So he posts it, and then there's all these people that go in, and they're like, "Oh, Mangler's a piece of shit." Blah, 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 blah. And then I see some stuff where people are... I see the same people, and this is what's so funny. I get screenshots from Lance, who sent, he's like, well, did you hear about, Tommy Snow? I guess is mad. And I said, okay. And he goes, but I got all sorts of wrestlers who are, standing by me and all this stuff. And I said, well, okay. So he starts sending me some. They weren't wrestlers. They were people who were in kind of the wrestling, this whole wrestling weird universe thing in the state of Kansas. So he starts sending me these stuff. Well, these are the same people that are going over to Tommy Snow's comment section on this post and going, yeah, that Lance is a piece of crap. So realistically, everybody and their brother just talks shit on everybody. It's just this fucking weird deal. Well, here's my wrap up on this. And then I'm going to get to my next person. Because we got to take a break and I'm going to come back to my next one. I'm going to do my next one here in a minute. It'll be about Burgess. I was going to let you know. Spoiler alert, it's going to be about Burgess. So Tommy Snow, here's the deal. I like Tommy Snow. I don't have an issue with Tommy Snow. I think what Lance did to Tommy Snow was absolutely, absolutely atrocious. But you got to think about this. Lance did this at like 2, 3 in the morning. He got drunk and he sent a stupid message. It happens. The thing that I also find real funny about all this is there's all these indie wrestlers on the Tommy Snow post and all these indie bookers and all these indie people who have power who are like, well, that's just too, Tommy Snow, he's a legend and blah, 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 blah. How many times you book him? How many times you book him on your show? How many benefit shows have you thrown for Tommy? How many times have you sent the guy a message and been like, hey, how's things going? I'll wait, but I'm sure it's not much. In fact, I don't know a lot of people who, when they found out he had the condition or when they found out that he was going to have to hang it up, or whatever. I don't know of anybody who brought him out as like a special guest to their show. Did anybody book the guy? Did anybody put any money in his pocket? No, it's kind of like the whole thoughts and prayers thing. When some national tragedy happens, people go, oh, thoughts and prayers. It's the same thing here. How many times you book fucking Tommy Snow? How many times did you guys attempt to do anything to help Tommy Snow? No, you just wanted to be able to say, well, Lance is a bastard. You just wanted to take a shot. You just wanted to take a chance to take a shot at Lance. That's all this was. And you used Tommy Snow to do it. And then at the same time, there's all these other guys on this thing that are like, well, I'm going to go get Lance. How many of you got in your car and went to Mount Hope? I don't know a lot of you. So it's a bad deal, but my view on it is how many times you book Tommy Snow for your show, how many times did you attempt to put some money in the guy's pocket? But Lance is always the bad guy, and Lance is always Satan. And like I said, what he said to him, well, first of all, if you've read the message, what did he say to him? I don't even know what the hell that was. But here's the deal. I will agree with everybody. Lance is a prick for doing that. But at the same time, I got to ask the question once again. How many times did you book the guy on your show? Before he had the condition. Then after you knew he was, after he knew he had MS and he had problems and he had to get out of the ring, how many times you book him? How many times you put him on a show? How many times did you bring him in and maybe do something to where he could do a role to where he wasn't getting physical contact, but at the end of the night you turned around and went, you're having a hard time, you're a respected guy in the business, here's some money. Or how many of you guys went, we're going to throw a show and then we're going to send Tommy a check? No, I don't know how many people ever did that because guess what? I got an answer for you. 0. Okay, that is that. That is our first one of these. There will be more, by the way. There will be more. We are going to take a break. And when we come back, I don't know what we're going to do when we come back on the radio side of things. But I'm still shooting. And I still got a list. I'm like Santa Jiggy. And I'm checking the list. Burgess Martin's name's on the list. We'll get to Burgess when we come back. Here on the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast.